We're going to start the next culture section with a story from Modir. So that's good.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I was in the Sinai. I think we were spending the night camped out. We did this one year. We camped out on Mount Sinai and froze our butts off. It was so cold. Anyway. This little Bedouin boy, I mean, he must have been like 5 years old. And he said something like, "Have you ever been to Cairo?" I said, "Yeah, I live in Cairo." And he said, "Egypt is the most powerful nation in the world." I thought, "Oh, okay, tell me more." And all of a sudden, I saw this view of what this boy has been told by all of these folks. I mean, from his perspective, we threw the Israelis out, right? They're gone. And all he sees is, all the world wants to come to see my mountain. And he also asked me, he said, "Where do you sleep?" And I'm like, in a bed. And he thought, women sleep in beds, right? And real men sleep on the floor. And so it was an eye-opener there to realize that I sleep in a bed and I'm at this second-rate country, becoming this second-rate country. Anyway, fun stuff to be learned from listening to just letting somebody tell their story.
Thank you. All right. So, all of my comments from before, like about holding your judgment and seeing what's happening and just accepting that you're there to learn, not to dictate. So I think that's great. And a lot of times we describe this as being an anthropologist, that you are there to observe. And actually you're going to participate a lot. And you're going to have this interesting experience of learning by doing. People will be like, "Oh, that's not quite right," and you'll be like, "Why?" And "That's the way it is." And you're going to be like, "Why is it the way it is? Is it because you're racist? Is it because this food is more delicious in another country?" I don't know. You're going to come up with these explanations, and I think that it's good. I actually think it's necessary for this to be an experience for you to have this idea of being an anthropologist and of observing the world around you and experiencing it and not passing judgment or not deciding things. But I also think you need to be careful about recognizing the shortcomings of that model. So, a question for you all. I was thinking, what would it be like for a anthropologist who has no experience with America or the Mormon Church, and they were doing an observational study of Provo, Utah. Exciting, I know. I would love to be that person. Just judging all of you. No, we're anthropologists, we don't judge. But maybe any of you can riddle me this. If this anthropologist were observing herd movements and stuff, and they were at heritage halls or Helaman halls on a Sunday at 8:50 a.m., 10:50 a.m., or 12:50 p.m. Can anyone imagine what they would see at that moment in time? Actually, what would they see?
Lots of people trying to rush to get to church on time.
Yeah, lots of people rushing out of their buildings, but they wouldn't be students rushing to class. What would be different? Can anyone think of things that would be different about them? They'd be dressed differently. All of the women would be in various levels of formality. It's interesting. Women wear super casual dresses and super dressed up dresses, and it's that's church wear. And then guys, you'll just see 100 guys in a white shirt and a tie, and often at times here the tie will be a little bit funky. They'll have some fancy socks on to make sure you know they're a person, but it'll be white. And there'll be a couple of guys that aren't in that same color shirt. Maybe their hair's a little bit longer and their tie's maybe they're wearing a bow tie. So let's say you're this anthropologist and you're observing this.
Is that you, Jim?
I don't wear bow ties. Still in the straight and narrow. Anyway, this anthropologist sees this and is like, sweet. This, like, I've like discerned that this is for religious reasons, and I can make a couple of like very educated theories about this. There is liturgical prayers that have to be done at a certain time, and you can't be there early for it. There is like a general like dress code for women that has to do with like not showing the shape of their legs. Because like ones who wear pants aren't like really with the group. They're like with the guys in the colored shirts and the bow ties. They're off to the side. And men have like liturgical clothing that's required for their religious practices. That they have to wear a white shirt and a tie, and that's part of their like religious doctrine, right? Now, all of those like observations and understandings, I think for all of you, you'd be like, oh, like I see how you got there. But if someone was told you that Mormonism had scheduled prayers that you can't participate in if you don't have a white shirt and a tie on, you're like, oh, well actually like, we have a church manual that says you shouldn't be forbidden from participating in them for not having a white shirt and tie, to like work against that like cultural norm. And church doesn't have to be at a certain time on Sunday. It can actually be any day of the week if like local circumstances require that. And like suddenly you like get frustrated, like what does anthropologists even know about our culture, about our church, about our doctrine? Like they don't know what it's like. And then the anthropologist hasn't really understood like that much more. They've actually gone down a different path, and the people that they're observing are like, oh, you don't really get it. So you're gonna see things in Jordan, and you're gonna be like, I know what's up. And you'll like see clothing, and you'll be like, that clothing is like clearly required for this, for like religious reasons, or that clothing is required by the government, or that clothing is required by society. And you might be right, or you might be wrong. So I think it's important, and this is like a great part of the like setup of this program, is that you're gonna have speaking partners. They're like super happy to talk about this stuff with you, and they'll often think it's funny that like your theories, but then they'll be like, oh, that's actually interesting. I have no idea why we do that. And like you won't be the anthropologist who like sees a room full of like very clean-shaven 20-year-olds, and then like a picture on the wall of some like white guy from the Middle East with like a big beard who has sheep, and you're like, understand where it felt like they have to get to a certain level to have a beard. I don't understand where the breakdown is. So just like bear in mind that like you're observing, but you're not like observing perfectly, and you're not like, the explanations will seem attractive, and sometimes they're a little too attractive, a little too tempting to be like, I got it, this culture, like that. Anyone familiar with like what a myth is in political science? This is different from like myth of like legends and stuff of like Zeus got around. Like that's different. Anyone familiar with this idea? A myth is a dominant narrative that shapes our understanding of the world. It's simplified information that's easy to like intake, and it shapes our interpretation of our own and others' identities. So within the United States, there's strong narrative, there's strong myth, and it doesn't matter if the myth is true or not for it to be a myth. So it can be 100% true, and it still is a myth for this like understanding. And I don't actually, like, for us it's not actually as important if it's true or not, but it's important to understand it. So there's like, within America, there's like myths of the Mayflower, and for us Mormons there's specific things about pioneers, and more recent history there's like ideas about 9/11, that these are like all things that have shaped our cultural consciousness that aren't because we were all there for all of those events, or we've all like studied them in depth and we're experts on those events, but because they're important for interpreting ourselves. So you're gonna encounter these in Jordan, that like people have cultural understandings of themselves, and be like, oh, but that's not what happened, right? Like, so Stephen's comments about Black September. What started this conflict? Was it Palestinians trying to seize power in the Jordanian government? Or was it the Jordanian government not wanting to take care of the refugees anymore? I think that both of these are plausible explanations within political science, and like reasonable people believe these things. But like depending on who you're talking to, they might have a very deep-seated belief about which one of those things is true, or something else entirely. And you're gonna be like blindsided by this a couple of times. Someone's just gonna be like, hey, you know that recession in America? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, Israel. And you're like, what? They're like, but like, not because they're Jews, but they're good with money. Not because they're Jews, they like to create like discord so that they can gain power. Like that's what Israel does. Like, I don't know why you don't believe me. Like, you know Israel, you know what they've done. So these myths of the nation that like often have groundings in truth or might be wholly true shape our understanding of the world around us. So you just need to be aware that like you have things about America that people are going to be like, what? That like America didn't come on like the Mayflower didn't just like arrive and like all of these pilgrims didn't just like pour out onto this like lush empty land. Like you killed a civilization. You like destroyed them and took it by force and did all these awful things. Like everything that you as like liberal Americans might have issues with in Israel, you did. And you just don't want to talk about it. And then you're gonna be like, oh, well, that's not what happened. We like brought them civilization. It's like all these great things. So however you feel about those specific issues, you're suddenly going to be in a context where your narrative isn't the dominant narrative. That the myth that you have subscribed to your entire life is suddenly the subaltern myth. That there's something more that the people around you believe, that whether or not, whoever's like right or not, there's going to be dissonance that you're going to have to deal with. And that's not a reason to be like, I'm out of Jordan, I'm gonna take a trip to Israel, and then I'm going back to America, because that's where they're right about everything. And when they're not, it doesn't matter, because I'm in America, and I feel comfortable. So be aware of that like, you're suddenly going to have that dissonance occurring. All right. Culture shock, we talked about a little bit. All these things play into it. Honeymoon phase, you're gonna like be like, wow, falafel is delicious. And then you're gonna have the frustration phase, you're gonna be like, I really wish that there was more like contrasting flavors in falafel, because that gets kind of boring, and also cut up my gums, because I ate some cold ones when I shouldn't have. Then you have adjustment, and be like, oh my goodness, I can dip falafel in hummus, and then like put spicy sauce on that. And it's like so many different like textures, and I got that going for me. And then acceptance, you'll be like, oh, it's okay to like only eat falafel 4 weekdays a week, and then on the 5th weekday, I'm gonna like get a burger, and I'm gonna like cry into the bun, and then I'm gonna move on with my life. But I think that it's important to understand that I think that all of you are gonna go through this. I think different people are gonna deal with it different ways. Something that you're gonna see and a way that you're gonna need to like help each other as a group is that your cycles are gonna be different. Like some of you are gonna be like honeymooning well into the 2nd month. You're gonna be like, wow, this is so fun. Like you can believe this food I found in this back alley? And everyone's gonna be like, no. You don't know what happened to me last time I ate back alley food. And then you're gonna be like, what are you talking about? And they're gonna be like, no, I only eat burgers for the rest of this trip. Taking out a student loan for this burger fund. And then they're gonna like deal with it, and they're gonna be like better. They'll be like, okay, you know, I didn't take out the loan. We're doing a lot better. Like, I didn't need to fund my burger eating. And then that first person that was like honeymooning and seemed like they were killing it for the first 2 months is like, guys, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I just realized that hummus and falafel are both made from chickpeas. I've only eaten chickpeas for a month and a half. And then suddenly this person that was killing it is like struggling. So just be aware that like these cycles differ. Some people are gonna be like at the top and you're gonna be at the bottom. In all things, but particularly with culture shock, just like be ready to deal with that. That like some points your roommate's gonna look like they got it all figured out. They probably don't, but maybe they do. And then other times your roommate's gonna look like a mess, and just like realize that you're not staying stationary, like you're both moving. And like sometimes it looks a lot better where you are, and sometimes it looks a lot better where they are. All right, culture shock.
Let me just tell a cautionary tale about the infatuation that we had a guy who ate shawarma apparently morning, noon, and night, and
It's not me.
he came down with scurvy. In the 21st century, yes, and in a country that has year-round citrus. I mean, you've got the Jordan River Valley producing this marvelous harvest of fresh fruits and vegetables. So, anyway.
Yeah, don't get scurvy. My goodness. I heard about some kids getting scurvy in Boston because they only ate top ramen for like months. Man. And he must have like gotten the shawarma without anything on it. I don't know. That's like not even like tasty eating. I don't know. I hope for better from all of you. But don't get scurvy. You might get tired of falafel at some point. That happened to me after I found out that I could get 50 for under $1.
So in our like housing, will we have kitchens?
Yes, you'll have kitchens, depending on how much you cook. Like, I don't have a grasp on y'all's like culinary skills. It will be, I think, like my experience with it was parts like what I see when I go around other people's kitchens around Provo, which I was really sad about, and then other people were like, wow, there's so much more stuff here than my apartment. That was mostly guys saying that. And so like, just like, you'll have stuff to cook with. We had like this weird thing where like, one of the like my apartment had 2 blenders, and then the other apartment had like 3 food processors, and those were the only ones that anyone had. So like, we were like trading them out, like these like limited resources of appliances. There's like 2 apartments that had rolling pins. So it's kind of like being in a dorm situation where like everyone's like got this weird mix of stuff, but you'll have stuff that you can cook. And it's great, like lots of produce stands and fruit stands, stuff that you can like just pick stuff up from, nice bread shops that you can get bread from like on your way home that's like freshly made. And it's such a nicer life than America. All right, sweet. You don't even know your own culture. People. First of all, food profiles. I don't know if this will get to any of you, but this is like I've tried to like tone back the food stuff until that last like falafel bit. I just want you to know that food is the most important thing in my life outside of the gospel and academics. And, like, academics like gets burned out sometimes. I just want you to understand that. And if you ever have questions about food stuff or like need a buddy for food stuff, I'm generally pretty available. But food profiles, this was like an interesting example for me because like I like taste things obsessively. Like I do like compared taste of like, okay, all 5 of the shawarma shops on the street, let's do it. There is like different cultural food profiles. And I like knew this was a thing, but I just thought that like different cultures were better at achieving it. Not that there was like different like preferences completely. So I served my mission in Greece, and I did not eat spicy food for a year. And I was just like, I need some spicy food. So I like made a Pakistani friend who like made these crazy Pakistani gyros. Is that what I call them? They're pronounced gyros, so don't say that around me. But I didn't realize that like there's just like no spicy food anywhere. So I went to Jordan, and I love it. I love munsaf, which is like this giant pile of rice, and then like lamb, or it can be chicken, but it should be lamb. There's like yogurt thing, like we don't need to talk about what's in there, it's delicious. And like toasted nuts, and all this stuff on top of it, and you eat it with your hand, if you're an OJ, which is original Jordanian. And I would eat it like really often, and I loved it. And I was like, man, this is tasty, but I was just like, can we get some contrast in here? Get like a little like the sour bit and then some spicy, or like a sweet and sour, or like a dessert that has like this contrasting stuff. And that's when I realized that like that is not desirable at all in Arab cooking. Like contrasting flavors is disgusting. Like if you go talk to the Arabs on campus, I think I've talked to all of your TAs that any of you have had, and they all hate Chinese food because of the contrasting flavor stuff. They're like sweet and sour chicken, absurd. Like that was an accident that happened in the kitchen that should not have come out. So you're gonna like realize this partway into your program. You're like, I just like have eaten a meal that was like similar savory flavors building on each other for like an hour and a half. And that was all I ate. Like, I don't know. And like the only like mouth rest was 7-Up. That was your contrast. And you'll just like learn to love it, and you'll realize that there's like delicious things, and there's a different eating experience, and it's a different like style. It's just something that culturally people prefer. Hosting. What do y'all do when someone comes over to your house? Let's say your apartment, like your college apartment, wherever you're living right now, as long as it's not with your family. What do y'all do? Like, you just said, Jaron, why don't you come over? Or I like knock on your door, I'm like, hey, I'm your home teachers or whatever. Just kidding, I love home teaching. I don't know why I was disparaging that. I love home teaching. Dan, what do you do? Someone comes over, sits down in your living room.
Someone comes to my apartment.
Yeah, like that you know, or maybe that you don't know. Yeah, whatever.
I'll sit on the couch and I'll talk with them in my office and try to answer first in my cabinet.
Wow. That is like some pretty high level hosting for a college student. And I tell you the number of apartments that I've been into, that like if they had offered me trail mix or jerky, I would have known they were lying because they didn't have any food in the place. I would have known it. I could like see it in their eyes. They're like, did you bring me jerky? But yeah, so that's fair. I would be surprised if you visit anyone, including people your own age, who don't like offer you tea or coffee, some other drink. You'll probably have to specify some other drink if you want it, like herbal tea or water, which is ridiculous to most Jordanians. Like they will offer you that. A lot of like most of the time, people will bring out fresh fruit. And just like an absurd amount. It won't be like, you want a banana? It's like, how many bananas do you want in addition to this plate of fruit I brought you? And it will be like, and then people will like invite you over for dinner, and you'll eat a crazy dinner, and then they'll be like, all right, now while we're talking, here are 2 plates of fruit and a knife to cut them up. And you're just sitting there, you're like, okay, I'm really full, but I'll keep on shoving this in my mouth. And like the hosting that I experience a lot in America is kind of like rude for like Jordanians. Like when I was talking to speaking partners, they're like, oh, like you would have like people come over and you wouldn't offer them tea. I was like, I don't even offer them water. If they want water, they can ask me, and then I'll probably give it to them because I'm a nice guy. Thomas.
What's expected of you when you're going to somebody's house and they're hosting you in terms of eating? Do you have to keep eating in your full?
It is a compliment to eat a lot, and people will continue putting food on your plate until you can't eat anymore, unless you are a very accomplished eater. And I had the singular pleasure of out eating a Jordanian host, and they were odd and were very close friends. So, Zach.
So I have a question. We ate with the Syrian family up in Murray a couple months ago.
The best food, Syrian
It
food.
was fantastic. Diabetic.
Oh.
And so it was funny because I guess the father is also diabetic as well. So he's throwing food on. I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, I'm diabetic. He's like, and I needed to take my medicine. I didn't know if it was like kosher to do it there. He's like, oh no. You're supposed to take it before your meal. You haven't taken it, so don't worry about it. So I was like, But they just kept putting on food, and so I'm just trying to think in situations like that, what's an appropriate way to say like, hey, I can have a certain amount but not offend?
So first, like all these things about like cultural norms, y'all have like a really like wide comfort zone, like or a cushion. People are really excited to meet you, and you're speaking Arabic, and they like you're trying. And people will forgive you of like even very like overt missteps, right? Like there's a lot of forgiveness to go around, so don't worry too much. Also, I never feel very comfortable with it, but you just like say that you're done, and you keep on insisting that you're done, and you just have to stop eating. If you can explain to them, that's a good reason. And like diabetes is unfortunately widespread in the Middle East, in Jordan in particular. particularly in the Gulf. So like, it's not that this is something people haven't heard of. So you can explain that to them, but just like, expect people to continue insisting, but you also are insistent and you explain.
This is kind of a weird question, but do they expect girls to eat as much as guys, or do they study after?
Well, I mean, I think if you asked a Jordanian, like, am I supposed to eat as much as that guy? They'd be like, well, no, he's a guy. But, like, all of the girls going to, like, eat with families, like, they experience the same thing of just, like, getting pushed onto their plate and just, like, struggling through it. Which, I like, it's delicious. So, there's that. Yeah, but girls are expected to eat a lot as well. Though with not having first-hand experience, my inclination would be that, so like girl talk is like super open between women, just like from the anecdotes that I've received, like people telling me. And I think like if you said like I'm on a diet, like everyone would be like, yeah, we're all on diets. Be like, no, I'm really on a diet. Like I'm gonna stop here. Be like, oh, okay. But this is something I'll expect. Like no, this is a real thing. Like Jordanian women that are like close to you will be like, yeah, we're all on a diet tomorrow. But it's like they're all like, yeah, we're all trying to diet right now. But we failed today. Tomorrow it will work. And it's yeah. Yeah, like I don't know. That's consistent with all of the Jordanian women that I was close to. Like all of the teachers at COSIP would tell me stuff like that. I don't know.
Don't look at me.
Okay. Class we talked about a little bit. You will probably at some point have friends that like you'll be with those friends and you'll encounter other friends. There'll be like this weirdness between them, and only later will you realize that it's because they're from different social classes. Like they're wealthier and they're like less wealthy working class, or like from. Like I had a really good Egyptian friend. I was like a tertiary friend. Like he was really good friends with the guy on our program. Like he gave him presents for his baby blessing that happened a couple months ago. It was like they were super close friends every day hanging out. He was an Egyptian guy working as a cook in a kitchen, which is not very prestigious work. And like we would play soccer every week, and he would always come, but there'd like be this discomfort when our like wealthy Jordanian friends from the university would interact with him. Be like, oh yeah, like we'll play football with him, but I don't know if we'd ever hang out other than that. But this is not like a thing that people are like in America, if you ask someone like, are you not hanging out with that person because they're like a lower social class than you? Like people in America are like, no, like that's ridiculous. In Jordan, it's just like, that's the way it is for a lot of people. Like it's not generally putting people down, like actively, just this is our understanding of the world. And there's like appropriate actions for these various people. You will be able to generally like navigate between those classes pretty easily. Even up like to the highest class, you have a visa because you're all, I would be surprised if all of you wouldn't be considered very wealthy by like any GDP comparisons, not GDP, like income comparisons, like taxes and stuff. Like all of you, I think would be pretty wealthy. I don't know, we'll probably like do something about this in Jordan, but like the wealthy section of society makes not very much money. Though the cost of living is lower, but just like be aware, maybe something like totally tangential, but like you're all pretty, my assumption that I'm pretty confident is that you're all pretty wealthy compared to Jordanian society. And that's just something to be aware of. So like it's nice to haggle and it's nice to like get a good deal, but at the same time I'm not super comfortable like driving hard, like, no, I'm only gonna pay like 1 dinar for that sweater instead of 2. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm like, as much as I like to think of myself as like a student trying to get by, like it's a different kind of economy. But
Another thing on the class thing is that it's very, very apparent in church, the class differences. And it's very difficult for the students to, difficult for the students to get their head around the fact that there is class difference in the branch, but there is, and if you try and force association, it will just fail.
This is kind of a random question, but sometimes I see like people on campus wearing keffiyehs. Is that kosher for like white kids to wear keffiyehs or like?
I think it's more kosher there than here, though usage of the word kosher to describe it would probably be inappropriate. In Jordan, it was totally fine, in my experience, for people to wear more the shmov, which is the. I had an object lesson that I didn't do. We're doing it right now. Yeah, but it's totally you're fine. I have like ideological like thoughts about it, but in like my experience, I think any experience with the people in the program, I don't know, like long term, there's other issues people have.
Yeah, speaking of kosher, so just while I'm thinking about this, and sorry, you get into character. You may not wear keffiyehs and things like that around Palestine, Israel when you go.
Yeah.
Okay? There's nothing. You don't wear Stars of David. You don't wear anything that says I'm taking some kind of
Or even
identity
like clothing
stance.
with Arabic lettering on it.
Yeah, you don't do anything like that, and you don't cross the border with a copy of the Quran. Okay, we had a lot of people who tried that trick, and the Israeli soldiers who were processing them could not fathom why you would want a copy of the Quran.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting you on notice that if someone gives you a copy of the Quran, then send it home with one of your friends who's not going on to Palestine, Israel. Throw it away, put it in the mail, but don't bring it on my bus. Just,
Like a cultural level, I'd advise against throwing it away, or if you do, like making that known to anyone. But counters.
don't burn it. Don't burn it.
Does that apply to like LDS physical scriptures as well?
No, you're fine with your scriptures are not. Just don't bring a Quran across the border,
Yeah.
please. It just costs us headache and time, and people have got better things to do than you trying to explain to people who are totally baffled about your interest in reading the Quran.
Yeah, and to like give you some idea, like I had a bag of knives in my luggage.
I was
kitchen
shocked.
knives.
I was shocked.
And like I didn't realize that like you don't check baggage when you're on a land border. Like this was just not something that I had in my mind planning, because it was easy to get it there because it's just my checked luggage. I had all my kitchen knives. They were just like scanning all of my luggage. I was like, oh no, I'm going to Israel during a time that some people were just starting to describe as a stabbing intifada, like a third intifada, where people were getting stabbed, like Israeli soldiers were getting stabbed. They got this case full of knives. And I was like, I'm a chef. It's a funny story, I'll tell you some other time. But they were like, go ahead. I'm like, do I need to take it out? Go ahead, you're fine. But
They
everyone
didn't
that had Quran.
hardly
stopped.
even blink. It was a good thing because there was a woman. There was a woman who was processing, and she says, "Oh yeah, fine."
That was the Jordanian side. The Jordanian guy tried to stop me, and the Jordanian woman was like, dude, get it through. And then like the Israeli side was like the two young guys. But yeah, that's something else. Gender.
Are you going to do your?
Oh yeah, cool. Thank you for reminding me. What do y'all think about my vest? Pretty sweet, right? I just want everyone to know this is like one of my favorite pieces of clothing I purchased in Jordan. I love this pattern. I also love vests like this sort of thing. And when I wear it here in the US, like people love it. They think it's super cool. I hope you all think it's super cool. I did not buy this until my last night in Jordan, and it was only after like some intense wrestling of the spirit that I did. And I walked into the shop, and I was talking to the guy, and I had to explain to him that I understood what this clothing was, what this pattern was, in Arabic, to convince him to sell it to me. Because this pattern is only worn by women in Jordan. This is women's clothing. Like, unquestionably women's clothing. Like, there's no world in Jordan that a man should be wearing this pattern. It doesn't matter what the pattern is cut into. It could be a headband. It could be like shorts. Like, something like, it could be clothing that a woman couldn't wear, and it would be inappropriate for a man to wear it because it is women's clothing. So, I don't know like how, like what I'm opening myself up to here, but for you all, is this like necessarily female clothing?
I was gonna ask you if you felt like Aladdin, so no.
Nice. There's some more Orientalism in there. Throw it in. Yeah. So like Aladdin, there's like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that this has like, there doesn't seem to be like a biological reason this is women's clothing. And for like Western, like the Western sensibilities, I think that this is like okay for a man to wear. But this is just like an example of like a cultural thing that will just make no sense to you. You're like, why is that women's clothing? No one I've talked to knows. It's just that women wear this pattern, and it's only for women historically. I don't know, like, you ever heard another story of like why, if there's like someone that said that's for women and not for men. Embroidered stuff generally more for women, but like when I say like this cloth, I mean black and red, this pattern embroidered. The shop I went into was only this cloth, like this color, this pattern, just all kinds of different articles of clothing. And that it was not the only one like that. And he's like, whoa, this is for women. And I was like, I know. I've got that. So that's just like not a lesson about like things that like culturally are like, there's no reason it's only for women. And then you're just hitting your head on a wall. So just be aware. And like all of the Arabs on campus that I've talked to about it have like had like very like strange mixed reactions. Because like some of them like have like this like knee-jerk reaction. They're like, and they're like, that's cool, I'm cool too, we're all cool. One of them was like, you kind of look like, not like my grandma, but like when my grandma like dresses up a table for visitors. Like I feel like she used that fabric to like dress the table, like a tablecloth, like a throw. Like, you know those lace doilies, like that, like in that. Like that's what you look like. And like everyone else, all these Americans are like, that's awesome, love it, it's great. Gender. A lot of the guys in the room might not have experienced this, but I think that a lot of the women might have. That in America there is different gender roles between men and women, and this is often visible to the group that's in a position of power. Historically in America, we have this distinction between not in America, historically like in Western liberal thought even, there is this idea of like the public and the private sphere, that the public sphere is the place for men and the private sphere is the place for women. Like, I don't need to get into that too much, but I think that like it's important for you to understand when you like interact with gender stuff in Jordan, to like realize that you're not coming from some blank slate. That first there's like an ongoing history of gender inequality in the US. So like learn to understand that and then look at Jordan and be like, oh, like there's things that I understand, there's things I don't. Also, movements for gender equality in a lot of the Western world, like first and second wave feminism, have had a lot of things tied to them that, in my opinion, aren't necessarily part of gender equality or a different path to gender equality. These are things like free love, a movement away from marriage, a movement away from child rearing, or having a family, those sorts of things that like a number of like Mormon feminists are like opposed to as the basis for feminism. But be aware that this is like also something that's hard for like American feminists going to the Middle East and be like, we want gender equality, so no more marriage and everyone go have sex with whoever they want, especially the women. And people are like, I don't understand how that helps gender equality. Why don't we just like all stop having sex outside of marriage? And So like understand that like first you come from a situation where there still exists gender equality, and even if you don't agree with that, like I think all of us can see a history of gender inequality or gender role differences. And then also that like a lot of the myths or narratives of gender equality movements within the West have like other things tied into them. That there's like other things like, does gender equality have to come from a separation of church and state? That's an assumption that a lot of Americans operate under. That like religion causes this, and a lot of like thoughtful Jordanian feminists that I spoke to were like, some of them were like, yeah, and then other ones were like, why? Like we think that like a religious state is the path to like eliminating gender violence and making it so that there is like a meaningful position for men and women in society, that sort of thing. Something to be aware of as you look at that. Also, but back to like what's happening in Jordan, I think that you'll find that there is actually a very stark distinction between the public and private spheres, particularly for women. That like women have a very specific like public persona that like is exemplified in clothing, in veiling, or interactions like not like making eye contact with men they don't know, not shaking hands, that sort of thing. That is very different in the private sphere, primarily with like other women. So women here, you will be like part of this private sphere at times, and you might like look out and be like, wow, I really wish I could be with like the shabab in the park, chatting it up. First of all, not that fun. Okay, shabab in the park are not super nice people all the time. But second, there are great opportunities that if you're caught up looking the other way that you'll miss. I don't direct these comments that much at the guys because they just kind of got to deal with it. Like they're just going to be out in the public sphere interacting with other people, and then even their private sphere interactions are going to be like this male private sphere that is very rarely like actually private. There's like always the like outward persona, and the only time that like men like really like let down their hair is with their immediate family, or like people that they perceive to be like that. And I only had that, I think, like really one time with a guy that wasn't like a very like progressive liberal Jordanian. And it was like after we'd been friends for a really long time, he was someone I met at like film stuff, and we just like sit up like late at night discussing stuff, and we'd hang out all the time. And he invited me and a couple of my classmates to like go with him and his brother on like their brother's retreat into the mountains. And it was like just us, and like when we got there, they like changed their clothes into shorts, and they'd been like wearing pants before. Like I was like, oh, I guess this is the first time I saw you in shorts. And it's kind of weird to see Jordanian guys in shorts. And like we were all lounging, and then we like made this barbecue together, and there was like this like openness that I had never experienced before. And that was like the only time that I got to that level while I was there. And I was like sad about that, but that's just part of it. So I encourage the guys to like develop those kind of friends, because it'll be an experience that you won't get from just having like people that you meet with once or twice. For the girls, for the women, I think that you will, like, as you go through this, like, the culture shock stuff, you'll, like, honeymoon phase, you're like, wow, this is so awesome. I just, like, meet random people on the street, and I go hang out with them in their house for, like, 6 hours. And then you're, like, at the frustration phase, and you're like, I just, like, sit in this house talking to them, and, like, that's it. Like, I can't go talk to people on the street. And then adjustment, you'll be like, well, I can, like, have these great experiences, I can learn these things I won't learn otherwise. And I think that as you get to this like period of acceptance, you'll be like, oh, like there's great things that I can do that the guys can't do, and I'm gonna be able to cook Arab food, and they can't. It is heartbreaking. Tribes and nepotism, we talked about tribalism. What does nepotism mean? Anyone comfortable with that word? Thomas.
Nepotism is I believe, said where you promote people who are in your family because they are in your family more than based on just
Nice. All right, an important word that will like endear you to many Jordanians if you know it is this idea of wasta, which is like connections, but it's like connections. Like, why are we going to this restaurant? Like, I got a connection. Like, how'd you get a job at the ministry? I got a connection, right? And it's totally like, it's not just that like, it's not a bad thing in Jordanian society. Like, it's assumed that everyone is doing their best to help the people that they know. Like, if you were not practicing nepotism, you would be a bad friend or uncle or cousin, right? Like, even to people outside of your family. So if like people outside your family were like, hey, why, like, I heard that your like second cousin asked you for a job, like a super prestigious job that they're not super qualified for. You're like, yeah, well, you know, we went with like the better candidate. I think that a lot of the time, the like other person that doesn't have any stake in the matter will be like, you're family, right? So that's like a very big cultural difference. That like you'll encounter people and you'll be like, how'd you get that job? I don't understand what happened here. And they'll be like, oh, wasta. And like I have lots of wasta now that I love. Like I cultivated my wasta like crazy. I love it. I was semi-officially adopted into a tribe with this guy that I went up into the mountains with.
But he didn't wear his vest.
Yeah, I didn't wear my vest. So, and then I like got really close with a number of very powerful tribes in Salt, which is the like second city of Jordan. It's actually my favorite city in Jordan. And like one day my friend was like, let's go to Salt. We're gonna tour the city, see all the sights, and then we're gonna eat matzah salpi, which is the best matzah. Comparative tastings would tell me. And like we were like going around, we're like, oh, this museum is actually housed in the home of the Hashemite family when they first came to Transjordan to be its like rulers, and Salt was still the capital city. Well, it was not the capital city at this point. And then like we go in, the person there's like, it's closed. Like you can just go into a museum whenever you want. And I was like, actually, and like said something to her. She's like, oh, certainly, like right this way. And like we go over to this other building, and it's like the director of the museum, and he sees the guy, he's like, my like cousin's brother-in-law, how are you? And like is super excited to host us and like takes us on a personal tour of this museum, and then takes us over to this other museum that was also closed, and it's like, hey, this is my cousin's brother-in-law and his American friends. Can you just like open up the museum for them and do that just for them? And I was like, what is going on? And then we just like encounter people in the market, and they like give like free samples. They're like, oh, I see that you're this person's nephew. Dates. And like when I go to my favorite places to shop, they'll like give me like a number of them will give me employee discounts because I'm really good friends with people who get employee discounts. And that's like totally like people aren't like, Jaron, you're such a scoundrel. They're like, yes, you know what it means to be Jordanian. You know what's up. So just like be aware that it's like a totally like a cultural difference. Like here, like BYU, it's illegal for, my father used to work here, he was not allowed to give me a job working in the law school, right? Because that's where he was. Because of anti-nepotism laws. In Jordan, it would have been inappropriate for him to not give me a job working in the law school. Okay? Shopping, you're gonna be haggling all the time. Anyone here like haggling? Micah, I should have seen that coming. Elisha? Nice. I despise haggling. I am a big fan of the market self-correcting until we get the right price. Like I'm a big believer in all of that. Like I don't even like capitalism. That's my favorite part of capitalism. And I had to haggle all the time, and like I didn't even want things, and sometimes I just like say a ridiculous price to like for that, I didn't want to haggle for it. So actually my friend, I don't know if any of you know Ella Baldwin, she was like in my group that night. She loves haggling. It's like the greatest pleasure that she has in her life is like beating down a Jordanian salesman. And he was like, I don't even know what I ended up paying like way below what he said. I think he said like 20 or 30 dinar. And Ella was like, okay, probably like 5. And he was like, what? And she's like, 4. He was like, what's going on? Just so you know, a dinar is worth slightly more than $1, or $1.50. I haven't actually checked the recent conversions, but that's still not the same. Yeah, okay. Steven's got me. I ended up paying like, I don't know, like $7 or $8 for it, and like all these like Arab housewives would love Ella because they'd go shopping with her, and then she would like be more aggressive than them and haggling. And they'd be like, "What is going on?" That was inappropriately low, but I love it. So that's like total props to you if you can get a good deal. I don't feel super comfortable like driving for the hard deal for like economic reasons, but I mean that's a choice that you'll have to make, and lots of people will have fun doing it. I despise it. I can't. Like sometimes I will choose to walk inordinate distances rather than haggle with a taxi driver because I don't like being in cars. I don't like dealing with like taxis, and like if I've like done my speaking for that day and I don't need to talk to the taxi driver, I just really dislike taxis, so I'll walk. But then other people will be like, "Hey, anyone need a taxi ride anywhere? Anyone? I can haggle it for you. I'll arrange the price if you want it." And it was an interesting thing that like some people love it, some people hate it. But just be aware that most of the places that you're shopping, you'll be haggling, not for food. I never had anyone like be like the price of food was negotiable. But like clothing, I don't know what else you're buying. Souvenirs, olive wood. That's what you're going to be dealing with. All right, questions. Those are just some of like my favorite things, but there also should serve as like case studies for you to absorb some principles out of. No questions on culture stuff? Okay, questions in general.
I do one. So for like working out, because I like to run in the morning by myself, but I'm sure that's not allowed in Jordan. So like what kind of options do you have for that? I don't know if you've talked about it.
We have not talked about that yet. This is, yeah, good. You should run in a group, but you can run. So some people like to like run off the streets, like run hills. I think for various reasons, it's like not a great idea. But we'll be living right next to Sports City. That's what it's called. It's an awesome name. Where there's like trails and stuff that you can run on. Additionally, there's plenty of gyms in the area that you can work out at. I actually, excuse me, sorry. I like meet a friend who was like, "Oh, I've been out of shape lately," and I was like, "You know what we could do every day together, Arab and Jaron, we could go to the gym." So we bought memberships at a gym, and I just like made friends with like the trainers there, and I don't so part of your homework each day for your issues class will be like there's a topic, and then you'll have questions to ask Jordanians, and then like some people like go out with like a survey, and they're like, "So, how do you feel about gender equality?" You like racism? No? Okay. And like you don't have to do it that way. Like you don't have to ask questions like that. You can just talk to people about race, talk to people about gender, talk to people about the government. But when there's like specific questions I didn't really want to engage with like people on the street about, just do it at the gym. Like waiting for someone else to finish their reps, they're like, "So." This was actually the most awkward one that I did was when we were talking about, it was like part of women's rights, but it was about abortion. And I was like, I don't really know what I could ask this about. I'm just like standing there at the gym, like, "So, what are y'all's thoughts on abortion?" I don't want to do that in America. I don't know why this occurred to me to do with Jordan. They're much less pro-abortion than America, than even like I assume like most of you in general. And they're just like, seems pretty haram. And like turned to like the other guys at the gym and like, "Haram? Haram? Yeah, it was haram." And I was like, "Sweet, okay." That's all I needed to know. I was unclear on that one. They're like, "Oh, glad you didn't know it was haram." Well, it's haram. And I was just like, so they weren't a great source to go to about that. It was a fun experience, like things not to do.
Do girls go to the gym?
Yeah, so this was something that was interesting to me. A lot of the gyms are segregated by gender, but there's like gyms just for women and gyms just for men. I actually went to a co-ed gym, and I only saw like girls there once, and it was like totally okay, like totally normal. And I was weirded out by how normal it was for everyone there. It was like there was this Like if those women had been like walking down the street, like acting totally appropriately, I don't think they would have been treated as normally, in my opinion, as they were in that gym. But I like don't know if that's a rule for all gyms. I know most of the teachers at COSID historically and still today was like very religious. Like it was just for like teaching non-Arabs Arabic for the Quran, basically, and then like developed into this language center. But they're still like, it's a pretty, like the faculty and stuff are pretty religious. So they'd be like, oh, I work out at like a female-only gym. But a number of my friends, but most of them being guys, were like, oh, it's totally normal. And I don't think that guys are always aware of like when a woman's uncomfortable or not in a situation. So that's, so like I was trying out different gyms, and I was just like, hey, can I try out the gym today? And I just like go and work out for the day and then like leave and never come back. And I think you should be fine doing that. But I think the best way is, this might be hard for you, I apologize for like Arabic reasons, just like making a friend and going to the gym with them. Because they'll like have a read of like what's appropriate, what's not, that sort of thing. But yeah, I saw women that, part of the reason I didn't see women was because I would go late at night instead of like during the day or early in the morning. Yeah, so you'll definitely be fine finding like a women's only gym. I'm tentative like endorsing the co-ed gyms as like a place that women can feel like completely safe, but I did not like hear about issues with them or experience them. Casey.
Sorry, so another thing, so for when girls are working out, so I know we're not supposed to wear short sleeves or
Yeah.
long shorts, but is that okay, or do we still have to wear?
So my understanding of the program rules is that like you still have to wear like the same like sleeve length, and your shorts should come to your knees or like just past your knees. I would suggest, like my advice for guys as well would to be like wear long loose clothing. I stood out at the gym when I wore like shorts there, and like all of the guys were in like tracksuit pants. I'm like, do people actually work out wearing that? I didn't know that was a thing. But like I only saw a couple of other guys at the gym that weren't wearing pants. For running, I know a number of like people in our program generally wore shorts, but and they like didn't have huge issues. But I think that like if you are okay doing it, I would say like long loose clothing is going to generally like surprisingly make you feel more comfortable. But that's my understanding. Like you can wear shorts that are knee-length shorts and like a t-shirt, and you like I never saw a woman working out dressed that way. I saw at Ultimate, I did actually playing for the Ultimate clubs. Like women would wear shorts, but I don't know. The Ultimate community is surprisingly progressive. I don't know. Elijah, you had something?
I was gonna ask about the clothing.
Okay. Steven?
Yeah, so can we go over one more time, like what the specific requirements are for like when you're going out about doing your speaking, when you need to go in groups, for both genders too, I guess, like what are the rules with how many people you need to be out about with?
Let's postpone that one for next week, if that's okay. We're getting kind of late here.
Yeah, we want to avoid the confusion of just like oral rules. And so we have like the rules in writing for the Jerusalem Center, which is for all of the time in Palestine and Israel. And next week we'll talk about like specifically laid out like what are the lines.
So you said you played soccer. What do women play soccer?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually we played co-ed.
Okay. So
and,
like, what would you wear for that? Like the same.
Yeah. So like a lot of the guys, and like we never had Jordanian women come play with us for soccer, but like basically all the guys still wore like long pants, like joggers or a tracksuit or something, just because like this is a weird like another cultural thing. I think in America when people like. For women in particular, like women's fashion, I think in America it's for a lot of women, at least the same amount, maybe more, like the inclination when you're wearing less clothing is to like wear short shorts, right? In Jordan, like as women, like if we were like measuring like progressiveness or liberalness by like clothing modesty, and like at the very far end of the spectrum, full length pants and just really revealing tops. Which was really like, it was interesting to me. I was like, that's so strange. Like it would be like the only time I saw women wearing shorts, even like not like super revealing shorts, just like regular shorts, was playing sports, like seriously, like on a team. Which strange to me. So like there's some cultural stuff, like men, like modesty is from, like in Islam, like strict modesty for men is here, like about the belly button to just below the knee. So if you're like, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of like, when people are like, oh, that woman's like wearing a burkini, and like the guy next to her is like wearing this weird swimsuit that like looks like a normal swimsuit, except it like has this like flap that goes up to here, and then like the length goes down to here, and you're like, that's weird, but not as weird as a burkini. They're both like, those are like both strict like swimsuits for covering modesty. Like for modesty reasons, like keeping that cover, the aura. But yeah, so yeah, playing soccer, but when I was playing Ultimate, like, so this will be something interesting. Girls playing Ultimate, they were wearing like, a lot of them were wearing like, I'd say about half of them were wearing like shorts that came down past their knees, like the rule will be for you all. And the other half were wearing like running shorts or like really short shorts. And they were like, this is totally normal. Like this is Jordanian society. We're in like some backwards country. And that will be like a time where you have that like dissonance between different people's narratives that like, they'll be like, it's absurd that you would not be allowed to wear short shorts to work out. And then other people will be like, what? You wear like knee-length shorts to work out? And that's just something that, trust the program, and also like a number of the time you like maybe you'll feel right, like correctly, like maybe there is an objective reality and you're right that we are too conservative about something, and it's because we'd rather be cautious, and in terms of like respecting other people's cultures, you generally don't want to be like riding the line. You want to be on the very safe side. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you very much.